staggered, but...
90-year-old Renee Mason saw the movie. It reminded her of a newsreel of the disaster belonging to her late husband. She didn't know where the film was until she dreamt it was a garden shed, and that's where it was, perfectly preserved. Among images on the newsreel, some of the survivors and the ship that IOS 87 years ago. Extraordinary find. That's the news on Saturday. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back. Revisioning the Real is an exhibition that's on at the McDougall Art Gallery at the moment, and I have Neil Roberts here with me now, the curator of the McDougall Art Gallery. How are you this evening, Neil?
Fine, thank you, Sonia.
Now, this is quite exciting, a realism exhibition, because we don't see, in my opinion, nearly enough of realism.
No, I believe that's true. The McDougall did a large realist show in 1993-94, which was Real Vision, which took the whole gallery. And this was really as a result of a concern that realism was being given a really bad deal amongst artists, because there's an assumption that within the last 2 or 3 decades that abstract art, conceptualized art, and other dimensions of contemporary art are more important, and that realism was really sort of a tired thing of the technically proficient hack, as it were. And that has been an attitude, and it's not the case. It's never been the case for decades now.
Now, I'd like to ask you to do something which may be fairly tricky, and that is define realism for me.
Well, this exhibition is, interestingly enough, an indication that you cannot define realism in one word or several words. It's got many, many dimensions.
Ah, good. So it's not just me then.
No, it's not just you, no. But there is a perception that realism to many people means photographic realism, where the artist is sitting in front of something and faithfully recording it slavishly in almost a banal sort of way. But this isn't the case.
It's most definitely not the case. Let's take a look at the clip so you can see exactly what we're talking about.
Yes, well here, you know, this exhibition has sculptors, 3 sculptors in it, as well as painters. And this work by Paul Dibble is sort of bringing back life to what he considered bringing back life to an object in the British Museum. It's his interpretation of this wounded lioness, which is a masterpiece of Assyrian art of the 7th century, which is in the British Museum collection. And Dibble was there with his daughter, young daughter, who was shocked by the state of the lion, really, and he decided to base his work around this. And this work here by Terry Stringer is an interesting one. It's really based around the whole allegory of light and day, and night and day is here depicted night standing on the face of day, and it's very much a totemic sort of figure. It's realistically represented to a degree, but it's not, you know, it's not totally real. There's more to it than just the representation of those features of the symbolic forms. And Greer Twiss, of course, this piece, which is really originated from him seeing in the Lopdale House Gallery some crates just sitting on the floor. And across the road from where his studio is, he has a musical instrument maker, and he's combined the two into an interesting treatment. Here, of course, we've got Michael Smither, who's a very well-known artist, and he's almost created with this woman washing her hair in a bath a curious sort of image, which is real but unreal in many respects. In contrast, you've got the landscape painter here, Stanley Palmer, who is best known for his prints, really, creating this image of the McDougall palms near Karamea, in a landscape form. They stand out almost as the lost sort of remnants of a forest of a bygone era. And the history factor that's sort of referred to with Palmer comes through strongly in works like this by
moving on very quickly.
Moving on relatively quickly.
Well, I wanted to try and get a bit of everything, which was the tricky part.
Yes.
Now, this work here, to me, is what we would consider to be classic realism.
Yes. Well, of course, it's a classic example of unreality as well, because like a lot of work by Sodell, the place doesn't really exist. The title of the work, called Gulf, really shows a gulf of the McDougall harbour, but it's not a real place. His wife, of course, who is the painter of this work, creates a surreal image out of her imaginings, and the only woman artist from the South Island, in fact the only South Island artist represented, is Joanna Braithwaite, with that very interesting monkey puzzle piece.
Now that one I thought was very interesting because it's indefinable almost, like she's asking us to try.
Yes, well it's all to do with cloning and the effects of cloning, where things seem to be the same, but in actual fact they differ from everything else when they become, when you clone off several figures that are identical. And of course Carl Morn, who is very well known for his garden paintings, that was inspired by the American artist Alex Katz. Lender Anderson, who was really the prime mover with this exhibition, has been painting the figure, interiors and still life for several decades now, and this is a combination of those forces which she's put into a painting over the years. Playing with illusion, really, you know, the presumed illusion of the reflected image, the image which is, you know, we're not sure how the spaces are. They are almost ambiguous in a way.
I like the idea of the painting within the painting.
Yes.
One thing I see this exhibition doing is opening people's eyes about what realism is.
Well, hopefully that will be the case, because, and hopefully it's the art community, really. The general public really don't have a problem with this. It's really the movers of the art trends that tend to prefer not to acknowledge these artists. Many of them working for some years who find it very difficult to get any sort of acknowledgement. Interestingly enough, this exhibition is only going to the McDougall. It's going nowhere else in the country.
It's interesting too, because for most people, realism is easier to understand, easier to absorb.
Yes, but this is more than that. This is thought-provoking. It invites the viewer to actually think about, you know, a pile of towels by Michael Smither take on a whole other dimension when he creates an image like this. They're more than just a pile of towels. They become an entity in their own right, and each one, you know, has each feature of it has its own sort of individual identity.
I think the whole idea of definition is very interesting, where the artists are asking us to define not only by what is in the picture, but also by the title.
Yes.
A gulf is a classic example of that.
Gulf, yes. Well, that invites the viewer to actually think, well, what is meant by this in the painting? And the artist really leaves it to the viewer to give an interpretation, because Sodell has never really defined what his paintings are about, because they're about memories, they're about all kinds of things which he brings together. And, you know, it's freely open to the viewer to interpret. And, of course, that means that they bear no resemblance to an actual experience of a place. If it was a slavish record of an Auckland harbour view, then that would be different. So these artists are thinking. They're not just sort of dumb technicians, as it were.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. There's most definitely a lot of thought gone into it, and also into creating a reality.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Neil, for chatting with us about realism. That's very, very good, and a wonderful exhibition, very well put together, as always, the McDougalls.
Well, it's actually assembled from Lopdale House, really,
Right.
but of course we give it our own sort of presentation.
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you once
Very
again.
good. Right.
And thank you very much for watching. Now,